Dad, please don't ask questions. Just bring the yellow lantern. That was what my daughter whispered into the phone at 12:17 on a Tuesday night, her voice so small I barely recognized it. Then I heard my grandson crying somewhere behind her, a man shouting her name, and the line went dead. 9 minutes later, I was standing in her front hallway with rain dripping off my jacket, one hand on my grandson's shoulder, my daughter behind me shaking so hard she could barely breathe, and my son-in-law on the floor yelling that I was a crazy old man who had broken into his house. Maybe I was crazy that night. I've asked myself that more than once. But I want you to understand something, my friends. There is a kind of fear that does not make a man tremble. It makes him steady. It makes every sound sharper, every second heavier, every mistake impossible to forgive. And when that fear is for your child, there is no age old enough to make you harmless. My name is Nathan Grady. I am 68 years old, and I live outside Wilmington, North Carolina, in a little white house with peeling shutters, a half-dead magnolia tree, and a porch that faces the marsh. Most people in town know me as the retired fire captain, who still stops at wrecks before the ambulance gets there. They know I fix lawn mowers for widows, drink black coffee at Pete's Diner, and walk my old beagle, June, every evening whether my knees like it or not. That is what they see. They do not see the 31 years I spent pulling people out of burning houses, cutting fathers out of crushed pickup trucks, carrying children down ladders while smoke rolled over my helmet like black water. They do not see the nights I woke up tasting ash. They do not see the faces that stayed with me after everyone else went home and called it a miracle. After my wife, Ruth, died from ovarian cancer 5 years ago, I got quieter than I already was. Ruth used to say silence was my second language. After she passed, it became the only one I spoke fluently. I kept my world small: the house, the diner, the dog, the garden, Sunday service, when I could make myself go. My daughter, Emily, was all I had left close by. She was 39, gentle like her mother, stubborn like me, and the kind of woman who apologized when somebody else bumped into her shopping cart. She had one son, my grandson Mason, who was 7 then, and believed I could fix anything with duct tape and prayer. Then there was her husband, Trent Harlan. Trent sold luxury roofing systems to rich people who wanted to pretend hurricanes were a problem money could solve. He was 43, tall, polished, always smiling with too many teeth. He wore shirts with his initials stitched on the cuffs and shoes so clean they looked like they had never touched honest dirt. When Emily first brought him over, he shook my hand too hard and called me Chief like it was a joke he expected me to laugh at. I tried to like him. I truly did. A father wants his child to be loved so badly that sometimes he will mistake good manners for goodness. Trent opened doors. Trent paid for dinner. Trent remembered birthdays. He could tell a story in a room full of people and make everyone feel like they were lucky to be listening. But there were little things. He corrected Emily when she spoke. Not loudly at first. Just a hand on her arm and a soft, "That's not what happened, babe." He chose what she ordered at restaurants. He laughed when she got nervous. He called her sensitive, in the same tone a man might use for a cracked windshield. At Mason's birthday party, Emily forgot to buy candles. She had baked the cake herself, blue frosting, little plastic dinosaurs marching across the top. Trent stood in my backyard with a beer in his hand and said, "Good thing Mason's too young to know his mother can't plan a grocery list." People laughed because they thought they were supposed to. Emily laughed too, quick and bright and false. I watched her face. You spend enough years walking into burning buildings, you learn to read smoke before you see flames. A room changes before it ignites. Air tightens. Heat gathers behind walls. Paint bubbles before the fire shows itself. My daughter was bubbling. The first time Trent mocked me openly was at Thanksgiving. Emily had come early to help me cook because Ruth's sweet potato casserole was sacred in our family. Ruth had written the recipe on an index card in her looping handwriting, and Emily kept touching that card like it was a piece of her mother's hand. Trent arrived late, smelling like bourbon and mint gum. He watched me carve the turkey and said, "You know, Nate, I never understood how a guy spends his whole life in the fire department and still ends up this boring." Emily froze beside the stove. I set the knife down. Boring keeps a man out of trouble. Trent grinned. Or maybe trouble just never found you. Mason was coloring at the table. My sister-in-law coughed into her napkin. Emily whispered, "Trent, stop." He raised both hands. "I'm kidding. Everybody's so delicate around here. Then he looked at me again. No offense, Chief. I'm sure you were real impressive back when smoke detectors ran on steam. I smiled, because I have learned there are men who throw bait into the water just to see what kind of creature bites. I did not bite. That irritated him more than anger would have. Over the next year, my worry became a thing I carried quietly. Emily came around less. When she did visit, she looked tired, in a way sleep could not fix. Her clothes changed. Trent liked her in dresses, so she stopped wearing jeans. Trent didn't like her friend Dana, so Dana disappeared from her life. Trent thought Mason needed structure, so the boys stopped staying overnight at my house. One Saturday in June, Emily brought Mason by while Trent was at a sales conference in Raleigh. Mason ran straight to my shed to find the little fishing pole I kept for him. Emily sat on the porch steps and watched him with eyes full of something she was trying not to spill. I brought her iced tea. She took the glass with her left hand. Her right wrist had a purple band around it like a bracelet made of shadow. I looked at it. She pulled her sleeve down. Dad, please don't. Those 3 words told me more than a confession would have. I sat beside her. Did he do that? She stared at the marsh grass moving in the wind. He grabbed me during an argument. It wasn't like that. It is always like that when somebody has to explain why a bruise does not count. Her mouth trembled. He's under a lot of pressure. I wanted to say things then that would have scared her away from me. So I swallowed them. That is a hard thing for fathers to learn. Sometimes the first rescue is not kicking in a door. Sometimes it is keeping your voice soft enough that your child does not run back into the smoke. Instead, I said, "Do you remember the yellow lantern?" She looked at me then. When Emily was a teenager, Ruth bought a cheap yellow camping lantern for hurricane season. We kept it in the hall closet, and during storms I made Emily practice emergency plans. Where to meet if the house flooded, who to call, what to say if she was in danger and could not speak freely. Ruth used to tease me about it. "Nathan, not every thunderstorm is a 5-alarm fire." Maybe not. But I had carried too many people who thought they had more time. The yellow lantern became our family code. If Emily ever said, "Bring the yellow lantern," it meant, "I am not safe. Come now, call for help." We had not spoken of it in 20 years. On that porch, with her bruise hiding under her sleeve and my grandson laughing near the shed, I reminded her. "If you ever need me," I said, "you say those words. I don't care where I am. I don't care what hour it is. I come." She tried to smile. "I'm not a kid anymore." "No," I said. "You're my kid forever." She cried then, but only for a few seconds. Then she wiped her face, stood up, and said Trent would be home soon. That was the last normal afternoon we had for a while. The night everything broke open, rain had been falling since supper. Not a storm, just steady coastal rain tapping the roof and turning my yard into black glass. I was in the kitchen cleaning Mason's little fishing reel. June was asleep under the table. The television was on, but I was not watching it. My phone rang at 12:17. Emily's name lit the screen. I answered with my heart already moving faster. "Em?" For half a second, all I heard was breathing. Then she whispered, "Dad, please don't ask questions. Just bring the yellow lantern." The world narrowed to that sentence. Behind her, Mason cried, "Mommy, he's coming." Then Trent's voice, thick and ugly, shouted, "Open this door right now." Emily whispered, "If I don't get out, take care of Mason." Something hit wood. The line went dead. I do not remember standing up, but I remember June waking and backing away from me, as if she knew the man in the kitchen had changed. I dialed 911 before I grabbed my coat. The dispatcher asked my emergency. "Domestic violence in progress," I said. "Adult, female, and minor child in the home. Male suspect intoxicated. Possible forced entry into a locked room." She asked for the address. I gave it. "Are you at the location now, sir?" "I'm 3 miles away. Officers are being dispatched. Do not enter the residence." I picked up my truck keys. "Sir, did you hear me?" "I heard you. Wait for law enforcement. My grandson is behind a door that may not hold." There was a pause. Then her voice sharpened. "Are there weapons in the home?" "I don't know." "Are you armed?" "No." That was true. I had locked my old service pistol away years before and left it there. I did not want a gun in my hand that night. I wanted my head clear. I kept the dispatcher on speaker as I drove. Rain slid across the windshield. My truck's headlights broke against wet pavement. The whole town seemed asleep except for me and whatever was happening in that house. A young man thinks courage feels like fire. At my age, I know better. Courage feels like ice. It feels like doing what must be done while every part of you understands the cost. Emily and Trent lived in a new subdivision called Heron Point, one of those places where every house had fake shutters and real debt. Their street curved around a retention pond. Half the porch lights were off. Nobody was outside. I pulled up 2 houses away and cut the engine. The dispatcher was still talking. "Sir, units are 4 minutes out. 4 minutes can be the rest of somebody's life." I walked fast through the rain, not running. Running makes noise. Old habits do not leave just because your hair turns gray. As I reached the side of the house, I heard Trent shouting through the walls. "You think your daddy is coming? That old man can barely climb stairs?" Then a crash. Mason screamed. I moved to the back door, locked. I looked through the glass and saw the kitchen torn apart. A chair was overturned. A plate shattered near the island. Emily's phone lay on the floor, screen glowing. Another hit landed somewhere deeper in the house. Not flesh, wood. A door. I went to the garage side entrance. Emily had once given me a spare key for emergencies. Trent made her ask for it back 6 months earlier. I had given it back. But I had been a fire captain for 3 decades, and most houses are not as locked as people believe. I will not tell you exactly what I did. Some things do not belong in a story where frightened people might hear them. I will only say the door opened, and I stepped inside without breaking the frame. The hallway smelled like alcohol, rain, and fear. Trent stood at the end of it in sweatpants and a dress shirt half unbuttoned, his fist raised toward the bathroom door. Emily and Mason were locked inside. The door was cracked near the knob. "Trent," I said. He spun around. For a second he looked confused. Then he smiled in that crooked way. Drunk men smile when pride is the only thing still standing upright. "Well, look at that," he slurred. "The antique fireman made it." I kept my hands visible. "Step away from the door." He laughed. "You don't give orders in my house." "No," I said. "But I do recognize danger when I see it." He took a step toward me. "You broke in." "I came for my daughter and grandson." He jabbed a finger at my chest. "Your daughter is my wife. That boy is under my roof. You old people think every family argument is a crime." From behind the bathroom door, Emily cried, "Dad? I'm here, baby." Trent's face changed when I said that. Something mean and jealous moved through it. "She's been poisoning you against me," he snapped. "Always running to Daddy. Always acting like I'm some monster." I looked past him at the cracked door. "Mason," I called. "You listening to me, buddy?" His small voice answered, "Yes, Grandpa." "You keep your back against the tub and your hands over your ears." Trent lunged before I finished the sentence. That was his mistake. I was not faster than him because I was young. I was faster because he was drunk, angry, and certain I was weak. Certainty makes men sloppy. I turned with him instead of against him, caught his arm, and guided his momentum into the wall hard enough to empty his lungs, but not his future. He swung wild with the other hand. I stepped inside it, hooked his shoulder, and took him down to the hallway carpet in one controlled motion. He cursed. He kicked. He tried to roll. I pinned his wrist behind him with my knee across his hips, just enough pressure to keep him there. "Stop fighting," I said. "You broke my arm." "No, I didn't." "I'll sue you." "You can discuss that with the officers." Red and blue lights washed over the front windows before he found another threat. 2 deputies came in loud and fast, weapons drawn. "Sheriff's office! Hands!" I lifted both hands, palms open, still keeping my weight where it needed to be. "Suspect restrained," I said. "Victims behind bathroom door." The younger deputy moved to Trent. The older one looked at me, then at the way Trent was held, then back at me. I saw recognition in his eyes, not of my name, but of method. Firefighters and cops spend enough nights on the same bad roads to know when a man has restrained instead of attacked. "Sir, ease off, and step back." I did. Trent immediately rolled over and started yelling. "He assaulted me. He broke into my house. Arrest him." The older deputy ignored him and called toward the bathroom. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" The door opened 2 inches. Emily stood there with blood at her eyebrow, one cheek swelling, and Mason wrapped around her waist like a life jacket. Yes, she whispered. That one word changed the air in the house. The younger deputy put Trent in cuffs while he screamed about lawyers, property rights, and how everyone would regret embarrassing him. Nobody answered him. I knelt in front of Mason. His little face was wet and pale. You did good, I told him. I kept my ears covered. I know you did. Then Emily stepped out and folded into me the way she had when she was 7 and afraid of thunder. I held her, and all the anger I had kept sealed away rushed up so hard I thought it might break something inside me. But I did not let it out. Not there. Not on him. Not in front of Mason. That is the thing about rage, brothers and sisters. It always promises relief, but it sends the bill to the people you were trying to protect. Emily and Mason came home with me that night. The first morning, I made pancakes because I did not know what else to do. Mason ate 3 and then fell asleep on the couch, with June curled against his legs. Emily sat at my kitchen table in Ruth's old robe and stared at her coffee like it might accuse her. I'm sorry, she said. I set the spatula down. For what? For making such a mess. That was when I understood how deep the damage went. My daughter had been chased into a bathroom by a drunk man, and her first instinct was to apologize for inconveniencing me. I sat across from her. Emily, look at me. She did not. So I waited. Finally, she raised her eyes. You did not make this mess. Her face crumpled. I should have left sooner. Maybe. She flinched. But fear does not unlock the door just because people outside think it should. She covered her mouth and cried without sound. That quiet kind of crying hurts worse to watch than sobbing. Over the next few days, the story came out in pieces. Trent had not started with fists. Men like him rarely do. He started with opinions. Emily's friends were bad influences. Her job at the elementary school took too much of her energy. Her dresses were too plain. Her laugh was too loud. Her father was too involved. Her son needed discipline. Her memory was unreliable. Her feelings were exhausting. Then came the money. He put the bills in his name. He checked her receipts. He moved her paycheck into a joint account and said responsible couples did not keep secrets. If she questioned him, he called it disrespect. If she cried, he called it manipulation. The first time he shoved her, he cried afterward. He said work had been brutal. He said he was ashamed. He said he loved her too much, and that was why he got so upset. The next morning he brought flowers, Emily said. Mason thought that meant everything was okay. We were sitting on the back porch when she told me that. The marsh was silver under the morning light. June was chasing a beetle through the grass. I think that's why I stayed, Emily whispered, because every time he was kind again, I wanted Mason to believe that was the real version. I nodded. And you? She looked away. I wanted to believe it too. 2 days later, Deputy Alvarez came by with a victim advocate named Mrs. Bell, a small woman in her 60s with gray braids and a voice warm enough to make you trust chairs again. She sat with Emily at my kitchen table and explained protective orders, counseling, documentation, the things that should happen after a rescue but often arrive too late. Emily kept twisting a napkin in her hands. There's something else, she said. She went to her purse and pulled out a tiny memory card. I bought a camera for Mason's room because Trent kept saying I was imagining things, she said. Then I started saving audio on my phone. Mrs. Bell reached across the table. You did what you had to do to survive. Emily's eyes filled. Not because the sentence was complicated, but because nobody had ever said it to her plainly. Deputy Alvarez reviewed the files later. The evidence was worse than I expected. Trent threatening to take Mason. Trent calling Emily worthless. Trent saying if she ever left, he would make sure nobody believed her. One recording caught him laughing about me. Your daddy's an old smoke eater with a bad hip, he said. What's he going to do, spray me with a garden hose? I listened to that one alone in my garage after everyone went to bed. For a while, I sat in the dark with my hands on my knees and remembered all the doors I had been too late to reach in my life. Fire makes a sound when it owns a house. People think it roars. Sometimes it does. But sometimes it whispers inside walls until the whole structure gives up. I had heard that whisper in my daughter for a long time, and I had told myself I was respecting her marriage, respecting her choices, waiting for proof. Maybe part of that was true. Maybe part of it was cowardice dressed as patience. Mason had nightmares the first week. He would wake screaming that the door was breaking. Emily would run to him, and I would stand in the hallway useless, wishing I could reach inside a child's mind and board up every broken window. One night, after Mason finally fell back asleep, Emily found me on the porch. "Did you ever get scared?" she asked. I almost gave the old answer. Men my age have a whole drawer full of old answers. No, not much. You get used to it. But lies like that are how boys grow into men who think fear is shameful. So I told her the truth. Yes, I was scared plenty. She hugged Ruth's robe tighter around herself. "You never looked scared." "That's not the same thing." She sat beside me. I said, "Being brave doesn't mean fear leaves the room. It means fear doesn't get to drive." She looked at the marsh, where the moon was caught in the black water. "I was scared every day," she said. "I know. I thought if I admitted that, it meant I was weak." "No," I said. "It means you were telling the truth." The hearing for the protective order came 3 weeks later. It was not dramatic like television. No shouting judge. No surprise witness bursting through the doors. Just a small courtroom that smelled like paper and floor wax, a tired clerk, a few rows of wooden benches, and people carrying the worst days of their lives in manila folders. Trent arrived in a navy suit, clean-shaven, hair perfect. His mother sat behind him, clutching tissues. I felt sorry for her, despite myself. No mother holds a newborn boy and dreams he will become someone women hide from. Trent's lawyer tried the usual road. He said it was a misunderstanding, a family argument, stress, alcohol. He said I escalated the situation by unlawfully entering the home. He said Emily had been emotionally unstable since her mother died. He suggested she had turned Mason against his father. Emily went pale. I leaned close and whispered, "Breathe." Then the judge watched the hallway footage from a neighbor's doorbell camera. It captured enough audio through the rain, Trent shouting, the sound of him hitting the bathroom door, Mason crying, then me entering, my voice low, telling him to step away. Deputy Alvarez's body camera showed the rest. There I was, gray-haired, soaked, breathing hard but controlled. Trent on the floor alive, uninjured, furious. Emily coming out with blood on her face, Mason shaking. The courtroom went very quiet. Evidence does that. It turns performance into noise. Then Emily spoke. Her voice shook so badly at first I thought she might stop. But she didn't. She told the judge about the money, the isolation, the insults, the way Mason started asking if mommy was bad because daddy said she ruined everything. She did not make herself sound perfect. She did not make Trent sound like a monster from birth. She simply told the truth. And truth, when it has been locked up long enough, has a weight to it. At the end, she said, I kept thinking love meant giving him another chance. But my son was learning that love sounded like fear. I couldn't let him grow up believing that. The judge granted the protective order. Trent was later charged based on that night and the evidence Emily had saved. The criminal case did not turn into some grand spectacle. There was no perfect movie ending. There was a plea. There was jail time. There was mandatory alcohol treatment. There were domestic violence classes. There was supervised visitation to be reconsidered only after a long list of conditions. There was a custody order that finally let my daughter sleep through a night without listening for tires in the driveway. Some people might have wanted more. Some might have wanted him destroyed. I understand that feeling. When someone hurts your child, mercy does not come naturally. It arrives limping, if it arrives at all. But Mrs. Bell said something to me after the hearing that stayed with me. We were standing outside the courthouse, under a sky the color of wet cement. You did well that night, she said. I almost didn't. But you did. I looked at her. She said, if you had beaten him, the story might have become about you. Because you didn't, the story stayed about Emily. That sentence hit me harder than I expected. For most of my life, I thought strength meant going through the door. Later, I thought it meant carrying whoever you found inside. Now I think strength is also knowing what not to burn down when your whole heart is on fire. Emily and Mason stayed with me through the fall. Healing did not look like music and sunshine. It looked like Emily flinching when a cabinet closed too hard. It looked like Mason asking 3 times a night if the doors were locked. It looked like me learning not to hover so close that my help became another kind of pressure. There were good days, too. Mason started fishing again. Emily went back to teaching part-time. Dana, her old friend, came by with soup and cried in the driveway before she could even knock. My house, which had been quiet for 5 years, filled with shoes by the door, cereal bowls in the sink, cartoons on Saturday mornings, and the sound of someone laughing in the room where Ruth used to fold laundry. One Sunday after church, Emily helped me make Ruth's sweet potato casserole. She held the old recipe card and smiled for real. "I used to think I failed, Mom," she said. I looked over at her. "Your mother would be proud of you." "For what? Staying too long? For leaving it all?" She pressed her lips together. I said, "Some people never find the door, Em. You found it with a child in your arms." That was the first time I saw her stand a little taller. Winter came soft that year. No snow, just rain and cold mornings. By January, Emily had found a small rental house near Mason's school. Yellow front door, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen window that caught the sunrise. The first night she slept there, I parked down the street for an hour like a fool, just to make sure the porch light stayed on. The next day she called me. "Dad, were you outside my house last night?" I sighed. "Maybe." She laughed. Not the nervous laugh. The real one, Ruth's laugh, bright and sudden. "You can't guard me forever." "No," I said. "But I can be nearby until you remember you're safe." A few months later, Mason and I were sitting at the edge of Greenfield Lake with fishing lines in the water. He had grown serious since that night, the way children do when adults break the ceiling of their world. But little by little, the boy was coming back. He looked at me and said, "Grandpa, is Dad bad?" I watched a turtle slide off a log. "That's a hard question. Mom says he did bad things." "She's right. But is he bad?" I took my time. Children deserve careful answers. "I think your dad forgot that love is supposed to make people feel safe," I said. "And when a person keeps hurting people, instead of getting help, they can't be trusted." Mason frowned at the water. "Do I have to hate him?" "No, buddy. You don't have to carry hate for anybody. But you're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to be sad. And you're allowed to be safe." He nodded like he was putting each word into a little box. Then he asked, "What's strong?" I almost smiled because life has a way of handing you the question you most need to answer. "Strong," I said, "is when people can breathe easier because you walked into the room." He thought about that. Then he caught a fish so small we both pretended it was impressive. Spring came, and with it, a letter. It was addressed to Emily from the county detention center. She brought it to my porch unopened and sat beside me while the marsh birds called in the distance. "I don't know if I want to read it," she said. "You don't have to. What if he's sorry? Then he can be sorry over there." She almost smiled. After a long minute, she opened it. Trent's handwriting was sharp and uneven. The letter was not perfect. There were parts that still sounded like a man trying to understand whether shame was the same as remorse. But there were no threats, no begging, no blaming Emily. He wrote about drinking, about control, about being terrified of feeling small. One line made Emily stop. I kept trying to feel like a man by making my own family afraid of me. She folded the letter and stared out at the yard. "What do I do with that?" she asked. "You don't have to do anything today." "Do you forgive him?" I looked at my hands. They were old hands now, scarred and stiff, but they had held my daughter when she was born, held strangers as they died, held my grandson while he shook with fear. "I'm working on not letting him live in my head," I said. "Maybe that's the first step." She nodded. "I don't forgive him yet," she whispered. "That's all right." Then she leaned her head on my shoulder. "Thank you for coming." I closed my eyes. "You sent the lantern." I almost didn't. But you did. And that is the part I hope you hear, my friends. I did not save my daughter all by myself. She saved herself when she found the courage to use the words. She saved Mason when she locked that bathroom door. She saved their future when she stopped protecting the image of a marriage that was killing her spirit. I was just the man lucky enough to answer the phone. That summer, we had a cookout in my backyard. Nothing fancy. Burgers, corn, paper plates, sweet tea, Mason chasing June with a bubble wand. Dana came, Mrs. Bell came. Even Deputy Alvarez stopped by for 10 minutes on his lunch break and let Mason sit in the patrol car with the lights flashing. Emily stood near the magnolia tree, talking with women from church, her face turned toward the sun. She still had hard days. We all did. Healing is not a straight road. Some mornings still took courage. Some nights, Still needed every lock checked twice. But she was no longer disappearing. That evening, after everyone left, I found the old yellow lantern in my hall closet. The plastic was scratched, the batteries dead. I set it on the kitchen table and looked at it for a long while. Ruth had once teased me for keeping too many emergency plans. Maybe she was right. Maybe she was also the one who bought the lantern. Before I let you go, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, grandmothers and grandfathers, I want to ask you something. If you believe I did the right thing walking into that house before the deputies arrived, comment a 1. If you believe I should have waited outside no matter what, comment a 2. And if you understand why I went in but you're not sure what you would have done, comment a 3. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is there, because it still amazes me that a story from one little porch in North Carolina can reach somebody sitting in a kitchen in Ohio, a living room in Texas, a porch in Georgia, or a quiet apartment somewhere I've never been. And do one thing for me today. Call the person in your family who has gotten a little too quiet. Not to accuse, not to control, just to let them know the line is open. Make a code word with your daughter, your son, your sister, your mother, your friend. Something simple, something only you understand. Because sometimes people in danger cannot say, "Help me." Sometimes all they can say is, "Bring the yellow lantern." And when they do, I pray somebody who loves them is listening. A locked door is not always the beginning of the end. Sometimes it is the moment someone finally hears the call. Keep a gentle line open with the people you love. Notice when they grow quiet, and let them know they can come home without shame. In hard seasons, one steady voice can become the lantern that leads a family back to safety and peace.